Hi, Nancy Ruby here, and today I want to introduce you to the most important pose of all, called the mountain pose. In Sanskrit, we call it Tadasana. And this pose, when you learn the yoga motion 10 points of Tadasana, and you really learn how to access those in your body, you can repeat that same pattern in every single yoga asana, whether you're standing, seated, or laying down. So please learn these because they will help to simplify your practice in so many ways. You won't be wondering if you're in alignment. You're going to feel that you're in that functional alignment, and your energy will flow, and you will build yourself strong, and you'll build mobility, and you'll enjoy your practice without injury. So let's do it. So Tadasana is all about starting and to build ourselves from the ground up. Every single pose we do, we always want to consider, what is my relationship to the earth? What am I going to sink into so I can then lighten up? So placing your feet hip distance apart, you want to lift your toes, all 10 of them, bend the knees a little bit, and press into the ball of the foot, because we want to ground down between the first and fifth metatarsal. So that's the ball mount of the big and little toe, right at the ball of the foot. And really feel into that. Do this with me. And press a little bit right to left, just to start to stretch out the sole of your foot and feel where we can connect. And then relax your toes back down. The other 2 points are the inner and outer heel. So if we soften at the hips and bring our hips back over the heels, then we can get that grounded. So again, if you soften the knees, the weight's going to go forward on the foot, and take the hips back, the weight's going to go to the heel, and then you find that balance between the two. So you're going to rock back and forth, shins forward, thighs back, find that platform at the feet, and then press down and lift up. Okay, so keeping that ease in the knees. The 4 corners of the feet grounded with the ankles hip distance apart. That's the first point. The second point is hugging towards midline. So pay attention from the ankles to the knees and hug just inside the calves so you feel that awakening of the musculature in your legs. And then coming forward, we call it shins forward. So just a little bit of a bend right at the knees, shins forward. That's going to soften the knees, bring the weight forward, and then we'll move out of that exaggerated pose. Keep that essence of shins forward and go to the third point, which is thighs back and wide. So we're going to lift through the muscles of the thighs, and we want to pull the thighs back so that the femur is deep in the hip socket. Now the tendency is the hips to go back and then the knees go back. So you've got to find that balance of shins forward and thighs back. So it keeps the knee and the hip joints soft. So feel that now. 4 corners of the feet grounded. Okay. Shins forward, hugging to midline. 2. And then thighs back, and we call it wide because you're lifting up and gently drawing back on those inner thighs, which softens the groin and broadens across the hips. Okay. From here, we want a neutral pelvis. So there's options on this pelvis. If we tilt it forward from the hip bones, it's called anterior tilt. Sometimes we do that to keep the space, but right now that would put too much compression on the back. So then we do the opposite, which is posterior tilt. That opens the lower back, but then it thrusts the thighs forward. So you're going to find that balance of 4 corners of the feet grounded, shins forward, thighs back, and then neutral pelvis. So you want to get the pelvis neutral by aligning the hip bones with the pubic bone and having a nice curve in the lower back. So it's very subtle. It helps to engage the abdominal wall. Okay, that'll help align the pelvis. And at the very base of the spine, we're going to engage those muscles between the sitting bones called MULA, BANDHA. So again, 4 corners of the feet grounded, shins hugged in and slightly forward, thighs back and wide, neutral pelvis. So you tilt that pelvis back and forth until you find that just right curve of your back and that alignment of the triangular pelvic girdle. Okay. Then we draw the abdomen in and up. We call this UDDIYANA. It's a very light engagement so that as you breathe, your belly's still ebbing and flowing with your breath, but you haven't just let it all go. So you're going to keep the belly in and up, okay? Strong abdominals, which will then help lift your rib cage away from your pelvis. You're going to create lots of space between the hips and the armpits. We also call that side body long. So we're lifting through the core to get the rib cage up and away. And what happens sometimes is it's easier to lift through the chest, so we might end up leaning, military style. So we want to come back in as we lift the ribs and hug these front ribs back in. So we open across the kidneys, right? So scoop the belly in and up, take the front ribs down, chest wide open. And you'll feel there's definitely muscular action in this. Then take the arm bones up, back, and down. Let's roll them around a little bit. Notice your shoulder blades on your back, and they're moving around. We want the arm bones to come up, slightly spin out so the bicep faces forward, and then let the shoulder blades come into the back and gently draw down. Again, when we do that, oftentimes we end up here in this big military stance. We've got to take those front ribs back down. This is the solar plexus. We want to calm that down. So we zip up the abdomen, we draw in the ribs, and we keep the chest wide open. So I often call that collarbones broad. Okay, let's repeat. Soles of the feet grounded through the four corners, lower legs hugging in, shins forward, thighs back and wide, so the thighs are back in the hip socket. Neutral pelvis, that's 4. Abdominal engagement, 5. Chest wide open, hugging in at the lower ribs. And then we want to bring the head right over the shoulders, okay, and lift from the base of the skull. Okay. Then looking straight ahead, draw up from the golden thread, and breathe. We can do the same thing with arms overhead. The arms come overhead, there's a tendency to lock the knees and extend the spine. So instead, we're going to come back to Tadasana. 4 corners of the feet grounded, shins forward, thighs back. Zip up the abdomen, chest wide open, front ribs hugged in. And then roll the arm bones open so that your collarbones are broad. Lift from the base of the skull, soften the gaze, and breathe. Hold on to that, take it up. Inhale. So the feet are grounded, the knees are soft, the thighs are back, scoop the belly. Here, if you take your arms too far back, they'll get that arch. You might want to bring the arms forward and hug in, maybe even take them wider apart. Side body long. Open the throat a bit on this pose and breathe. Let it go. One more time. 4 corners of the feet grounded. Lower leg hugging to midline. Shins in. Slightly forward. Thighs back and wide. Neutral pelvis. Lifting from the pelvic floor. Lifting from the abdomen. Chest wide open. Front ribs hugging in. Arm bones spinning open. Collarbones broad. Lengthen from the base of the skull. Take your gaze straight ahead and breathe. Learn those points and we will apply them to every single asana. Namaste.